Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of St. Anne Home.
Welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Here now is your host, Chad Amond, President and CEO of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce.
Hello and welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections. I'm your host, President and CEO of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce, Chad Amond. I am happy to have Maureen Zang. She is the Program Director for Open Your Heart to a Senior in Greater Greensburg. It is a program of the United Way of Southwestern Pennsylvania. Maureen, thank you very much for being on the show.
Oh, you're very welcome, Chad. I'm so glad to be here today.
So I think we need to start off. What is your role and your background to getting into Open Your Heart to a Senior?
Well, I have a kind of, I guess it's kind of interesting, but a rather long, circuitous route to getting here to working for a nonprofit that helps seniors. My role is a program director, so I have three basic major functions, and that is to raise awareness of the program, one of the reasons I'm here today. Also to recruit for the program volunteers, because all of our services are provided by volunteers. And then I have an independent fundraising goal, and so that's another task that I am charged to do to help raise money to support the program. So I came here to try to not give you all the long, boring details of my career, but I actually started in the medical field. I have a Bachelor of Science in Medical Technology from the West Virginia University. I started out in doing basic research. After that, I went into medical sales for a long, long time. I took a little bit of time off from working at all to raise my children. I have three sons who are now grown. And then when I went back to work, I started to work for a nonprofit. I went to work for the Westmoreland Museum of American Art as their public program director. And then about a year ago, I was looking for a way to give back to my community in a different way. And this opportunity arose at the United Way with this program, Open Your Heart to a Senior. And I think it was that combination of my analytical background, my sales, my marketing skills that all kind of coalesced into making me a good candidate for this program. And that desire that I had to really give back to the community was a perfect match for me in terms of matching those skills with something that I thought was important to contribute to the seniors in our area.
So that is a good fit with your background in healthcare and your marketing and stuff like that. So, I mean, maybe the listeners need to know describe Open Your Heart to a Senior. What do they do? What does your organization do to provide care for seniors? Because, you know, with the chamber, my role in the chamber, we obviously know that we have one of the most aging populations in the nation. We have almost a third of our population is of retirement age. Mm-hmm. So this is probably a very important program.
Yes, it is. As you mentioned, Westmoreland County, Western Pennsylvania, we are at the high end of the nation in terms of leading the nation in terms of percentage of seniors over the age of 60 and 65. So there's a true need in the community. I'll start by saying what we don't do, and then I'll talk about what we do. So we don't provide personal care. We don't do medical care. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to help seniors who are still living in their homes to be able to remain in their homes as long as I like to worry this, sometimes I use the word could, but really the word is should, to keep them safe and living independently. So to give you an example of what we do, a lot of seniors lose the ability to drive. It's not, they have a lot of vision issues. They are able to perfectly function in their homes. They can dress themselves, they can cook for themselves, they can shop for themselves. They just can't get places anymore because they've lost their driving privileges. Mm-hmm. So for them, getting them to the doctor's appointment. Sometimes for a lot of them, that's all we do, just getting them the places they need to go. But we can take them grocery shopping. We can take them to get their hair done, because if they can't drive, they can't drive. And so that's a huge part of the services that we offer. But we'll also do some things like a supportive visit. A lot of seniors find themselves isolated and alone for a variety of reasons. You know, some seniors never had children, so they don't have a big family support network at all. But other seniors may have family who are moved away. You know, their children, and this is an issue we have with the county, with that issue of transitional families moving in, moving out. And so some seniors find themselves, they want to stay in their homes. Again, they're still independent enough and functional. Their kids have moved away. They're not ready to make that move yet to move near their children or to move into a different living situation. And for them, just having someone that will visit them for an hour once a week or every 2 weeks to give them that companionship is something we can do. Or even a supportive phone call, just to call them. Hi, how you doing? Just to chat. I have a woman here in Greensburg who makes phone calls for us. She has about a half a dozen folks that she calls, and some she calls and talks 10 or 15 minutes and once a week, and others she calls and talks for an hour. It's that way of helping seniors feel like there's somebody in the community who cares about them. We want to keep them connected, to feel like they're still connected to the community, somebody out there cares, and we can fill that gap for them. So we do that. We do that supportive visit. We do that supportive phone call to keep them connected, to let them know that they're still a vibrant member of this community, even though maybe they're not as active as they used to be outside in the community.
So how long has Open Your Heart to a Senior been in action? I mean, I think that it was formerly called Faith in Action, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So how long has that been? Because, I mean, some of the listeners maybe say, oh, this is competing with Faith in Action. Mm-hmm. They don't know that the name was changed. But how long has it been in action?
Okay, so you're right. So the program had originally called Faith in Action. So Faith in Action was a model developed by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation almost 30 years ago. They recognized the needs of seniors in the United States that weren't quite getting this. There weren't enough programs to support them, and that volunteers were really going to fill that gap to help seniors by creating those relationships, those friendships to help them with these everyday tasks that they needed to get done. And so the Robert Wood Johnson seeded programs throughout the United States. I don't know how many there were at the time, but the goal was that they would fund them initially, and then those programs would develop a coalition locally of churches at the time, and still churches are still really important, churches, community groups, even government agencies, and then they would become independent agencies and be independently financed locally and function locally. And the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation never intended to fund them forever.
Right.
So some of the programs did not survive, but but the vast majority of them did. In Westmoreland County, the first program started in 2007 up in the Alakiski area, up in the Lower Borough, New Kensington area. It was followed by a service area in Western Westmoreland, we call Western Westmoreland, which is that Murraysville, Trafford, Irwin, Jeanette, North Huntington area. Then came Jacobs Creek, which is Scottdale, Mount Pleasant. Mm-hmm. And actually the Greensburg was the last program in Westmoreland County, founded in 2012. So each of those service areas cover, those 5 programs are under the auspices of the United Way. And then we changed the name about a year ago to reflect that they were part of the United Way. So these came about, and the ones in Westmoreland County came about after the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation's program. It sort of moved on. The programs had become self-sustaining, but there were none in Westmoreland County except the one in Latrobe, and that is still a Faith in Action. And so in 2007, when the officials in Lower Borough recognized this need, they were looking for a model, and they were looking for funding. At the same time, the United Way had done a needs assessment in Westmoreland County recognizing that the elderly were a problem, not a problem, but a community, a population that was not being completely well served. So it was that perfect storm of Lower Borough looking for a program, a model, the model of Faith in Action existing, and the United Way offering to make that commitment, that, again, to sort of be that seed money that the Robert Wood Johnson had done years ago. And then what happened is the program sort of stayed within the United Way, and then the other programs, like I said, within the 5 programs within the county, continue to develop under the auspices of the United Way. And that's, like I said, we are now Open Your Heart to a Senior, but it's still the same model. It is still Faith in Action. Right. It's still rooted in those values that we find in our church and our faith communities of serving, of self-service to our neighbors and our friends in need.
You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. We're talking with Maureen Zang. She is the program director for Open Your Heart to a Senior. It's functioned under the United Way of Southwestern Pennsylvania. Maureen, some of the listeners probably think that this is only served for seniors that are poverty-ridden. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's the case, right?
That's correct, Chad.
Yeah. So you serve transportation to doctors, caregiver relief, health and light household duties and errands and grocery shopping, and I think I'm going to be waiting for the senior that would be that would be a very good thing. So who do you serve? I mean, that's probably the primary question.
Mm-hmm. We serve anyone over the age of 60. Okay. We do not have an income requirement to enroll in our program. Anyone over the age of 60 can enroll. I will tell you that the vast majority of our recipients are low income. We do ask those demographic questions, but income is not a requirement. There's no requirement and there's no exclusion based on income. But a lot of our recipients are low income. Most of our recipients, probably the majority, are women. They're single, and they have that. So they may have some family support. They may not have some family support. They just need that extra little help. Like you mentioned, home helpers. We have some requests, and we're happy to try to accommodate them for folks that need that extra little hands around the house. And again, I can best give this through examples. I had a local woman. She's a widow. Again, cannot drive because of vision issues, but still self-sufficient at home. She needed help putting her patio furniture away for the summer. She has children. They are not close. They're nearby, but not close enough to help her with some of those everyday tasks. I have a woman who needs her window air conditioner put into her window in the summer and taken out in the fall. Again, it's too heavy for her to lift on her own, right. But we have a gentleman. I have a number of gentlemen who will do that kind of task. Well, they'll go over, they'll put it in for her, and in the fall, she calls and we take it back out. So, there's this kind of home task. I see a lot of seniors when I go into their homes who have all of their canned goods arranged on their countertops because it's getting more difficult for them to reach things up in the upper levels of their cabinets.
Right.
So to go in and say, hey, can we help you rearrange your cabinets so that the things you need are down low and the things you don't use very often are up high, can be just a real benefit for senior. It's that everyday living that kind of helps them stay more comfortable and more functional in their homes and still living independently. So those they sound kind of minor to you and I, who are very able-bodied, to get up on a step ladder and change that light bulb up on a ceiling fan. But we really don't want someone who's 80 up on a step ladder trying to change overhead light bulbs. That's
the things that are happening every day, and that's probably critically important to those folks.
And who are they going to call at any price to get that done?
Right.
And like I said, we see a variety of family situations. We have a lot of family, seniors who still have engaged family, but they're working. Their children are working. They have grandchildren now that they're, have to take care of. And so we fill that gap, like, we'll get you to the doctor on that Tuesday afternoon, and then the family helps them with their shopping and their grocery and all their other needs in the evenings, their weekends. So, we see people with a lot of different family situations, that they're not abandoned by their families, so to speak, or their families aren't physically distant. They're here, but they have busy lives of their own, and we fill that gap.
You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're talking with Maureen Zang, Program Director. If you are interested in becoming a volunteer or becoming a participant in the program, we're going to address that when we return. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. We'll be right back after these messages.
This is Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. If you have a suggestion for a topic, or if your nonprofit organization would like to be featured on this program, call us during regular business hours at 724-216-1200.
Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of St. Anne Home.
Welcome back. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. I'm your host, Chad Amond, President and CEO of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce. My guest today is Maureen Zang. She is the Program Director for Open Your Heart to a Senior. They are facilitated by the United Way of Southwestern Pennsylvania. Maureen, before we took the break, we were talking about what all the Open Your Heart to a Senior provides, and they provide to seniors over 60 transportation to doctors, household duties, grocery shopping, supportive visits, and all of those things. How are you funded? And do you have fundraisers?
Well, that's a good question, Chad. We actually are funded from a variety of ways. The Women's Leadership Council is a group of philanthropic ladies within the United Way who provide part of our funding. The United Way, through its workplace campaign, also provides part of our funding. Local foundations, sometimes local individual philanthropists in the community, some of the groups like the Rotary Club provide some funding for us. So we're sort of always looking for opportunities to partner with agencies in the community to help us with funding. And then I also do independent fundraising events. One of them that you are well familiar with is Dancing with Celebrities, which is a Dancing with the Stars type of event that the United Way and Open Your Heart to a Senior has been doing for a number of years now. And I believe you danced, is it 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
I did the tango.
Okay.
That was a bucket list checkoff.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Not too many people have that on their bucket list.
Yeah, right. Well, it was fun, and I was honored to be invited to raise money for this program. It was amazing.
Well, we appreciate that you would step out and do that, and I mean that literally and figuratively. It's a big commitment that we ask folks that participate in that event to really, want to perform in front of hundreds of their friends and family and strangers and do all the work. It's a lot of work to prepare for that, to do all the practicing and the rehearsing.
Well, I always say the more you drink, the better you dance, right?
Absolutely. And the more you drink, the better you look to from the audience to the audience, right. Too. So that's one big fundraiser that we are going to do again this year.
When is that going to be?
It'll be in November again. I don't think we've set the date yet. Yeah. So if you're welcome to come back if you'd like to do it again.
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe the listeners need to mark that on their calendar, and they need to go on to onto your website and find the date, because that is a fun program. It's
a great way to see some of your local business and community leaders really perform for you in a different way and see them in a different light. But we do a variety of fundraising things. I just did a bingo fundraiser in Greensburg, which the friends who are outside of this area were just so surprised to find out that bingo is still a thing in this area. But it was really very successful. It was a fun event. It was a very successful event for us. We sometimes do dinner dances. We do ticket sales. We're always looking for a variety of ways to raise revenue. It's like I said, it's I don't want to say unfortunate, but a reality of the work that we do is that we have to keep the lights on. We have to have phones, and we have to fundraise to supply all the needs that we have for our program.
Right. You have to fundraise, but some of the listeners, they probably want to know how does a senior get involved as a recipient? Do they need to sign up online, or do they need to call, or how does a senior get involved?
Well, all a senior has to do is call our phone number, and we'll give the Greensburg phone number shortly. All they need to do is call the office, and we do have an enrollment process. We like to go to their home for their convenience to do the enrollment. We just need to get things like emergency contact information, those family members who we would reach out to in the event of emergency, a little bit of a medical history just so we are aware of what our volunteers might anticipate to expect. They need to sign to enroll, although there's no fee to enroll. So all of our services are provided free of charge because they are provided by volunteers. And we do that in their home, and it takes about a half an hour. And then once they're enrolled, they can call. We have a dedicated phone line for transportation services, because that is a big piece of what we do. So we have a dedicated phone line that they can call to get matched with a volunteer for transportation. And then they can call me directly. The program directors all manage all the other service requests, such as supportive visitor or caregiver relief or those home safety checks. So that's all managed in-house.
So it's pretty easy to sign up.
It was very easy to sign up.
Yeah, senior.
We try to make it as simple as we can.
Well,
we don't do anything online because we do like to meet our recipients. It really is often, for me as the director, one of the only opportunities I get to actually meet my recipients one-on-one. And I don't do all of the intakes, but some of my volunteers do. But that is a chance to really get to see them, get to know them a little bit, get to really explain all of our services, even though they may be calling for a specific need. Maybe it's transportation. But when we get in there, we see those cans on the countertops, and we see some other ways that we might be able to help them. We might be able to suggest, would you like a home safety check? Because maybe we see that there's some extension cords that present tripping hazards, or might ask them about their smoke detectors, if they're working, if they've changed the batteries, because of services we offer, but that may not be the thing they're asking for up front. And it may be something they don't need today, but something that we want to explain all that to them in person, so that maybe in the future they'll remember that, I know I have this thing I need, this air conditioner that I need, or I have this shade that's not working and I need to be replaced. Can maybe open your heart to a senior who could come and send a volunteer to help me with that.
Right. Well, We've talked about a number of the important issues. We talked about the services that you provide. We talked about how does a senior sign up to get involved as a recipient. We talked about the fundraising, but probably one of the most important issues that you are addressing is the volunteers. I mean, that I can't imagine that it wasn't one of the most important things that you have to address, because those volunteers, they're doing the transportation to the doctor's visits, and they're doing the grocery shopping and the canned goods and stuff like that. So how many volunteers do you have first?
Oh, well, the answer to that question is always never enough.
Okay.
And it's truly, we have I do have a huge need in Greensburg for more volunteers. The group that I have are extremely dedicated. The people that will do this kind of work are so devoted, and they are so kind. They are so caring, and they do a lot, and they do everything we ask them to do. But I still sometimes I'm sometimes not able to fulfill requests that we have. I've had a lot of requests recently for caregiver relief, and that takes a special kind of person to go into a home and visit with somebody that's got maybe some dementia or other kind of early Alzheimer's. That's a lot of time what we see when we get a request for caregiver relief. We have a couple, one of the spouses is taking care of the other, and they just need to have that time away to get a little bit of a break. But it takes a special kind of volunteer to go in and do that. So I'm always looking for volunteers. And again, volunteers come and go for a variety of reasons, and this is something I've experienced with my work prior at the museum when working with volunteers. They develop medical issues of their own. They sometimes move out of the area. So volunteers are something we are constantly recruiting for and looking for that kind of member. So we're looking for those folks in the community who have that time on their hands now, that desire to give back to the community, and that willingness to work with seniors.
Do you get like the post-secondary students that volunteer, or the high school students that volunteer, or do you get? I'm imagining that you get church groups and things like that volunteer.
So most of my volunteers qualified to be recipients. They are most of my volunteers are retirees. They are folks who are now have time on their hands. They're done with their work life, but they're still young, so to speak. They are still healthy. They're still active. So they're looking for ways to stay active. And now they are looking for that opportunity to give back to their community. So sort of something I was looking for when I took this position was looking for that way to give back to the community. So retirees are in that special kind of situation, ideal situation to be volunteers. And so that's where most of my volunteers are, the retirees that are happy to do this. They can really relate to our recipients because, like I say, they are our recipients. So they relate to some of the infirmities of older age, of the slowness and the aches and pains that come with it. So those are my volunteers. Now, I did recently have the opportunity to have a high school student volunteer for me. I had a young man, he's a senior at Greensburg-Salem High School, who as an elective in community service chose to serve with my program. And he was really wonderful. It was his choice to come with us, so he had that disposition to work with the elderly. And the folks that I matched him with absolutely love him. They still ask about him.
Right.
He didn't drive for me because he was too young to be offering that service, but he did a lot of supportive visits. He did a lot of grocery shopping. He did those supportive helpers to help, with people that needed some things moved in their home. They just needed some muscle, to get some things done around the house. And he was perfect for that. And there are those opportunities for young people who want to help in that way. We don't have a minimum age necessarily to serve. We also try to partner with school groups. I'm always looking for groups like school groups that are looking for service projects. There are things that we get requests for that we can't always provide, that are outside of our services. Yard work is a big one, or snow shoveling in the winter, and that's sometimes where I can partner with a youth group or even a family that can go and do that, like one day, 4 hours, 4 or 5 people to go and do that kind of a project. So I'm always looking for those kind of organizations. So there's room for us to partner and work with college groups and high school groups and family groups that might not be able to commit on a day-to-day basis, might be looking for that once-in-a-while opportunity.
We're talking with Maureen Zang, Program Director for Open Your Heart to a Senior. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Maureen, how do you train the volunteers, and do they have to have a background check and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. Well, we do a criminal background check on all of our volunteers. They have to have if they're going to drive our recipients, they have to have a valid driver's license. They have to have, they have to maintain their vehicle in working order. They have to have adequate insurance on their vehicles. And then we do carry an umbrella liability policy over all of our volunteers. So we do have excess liability for personal injury. So our volunteers are protected if there would be any kind of an incident or accident while they're involved with our recipients, because we do want to protect our volunteers. It is a concern for them.
Right.
But those are our requirements for volunteer to be a volunteer. And then we do a training. It's about an hour and a half training, focuses on not only policies and procedures, but sort of best practices and helpful hints for how to work with seniors, how to work with the elderly, talk about communication techniques and that sort of thing to help them be good volunteers and work with this particular aging population.
So the last question is, how much time do the volunteers need to contribute?
Well, we don't have any requirements, and that's the beauty of our program. It's very flexible the way we schedule our volunteers. So again, to use an example, every day we send out an email with a list of all of our transportation requests for the week, usually for the next week or two. And then the volunteers look them over every day, and they just say, well, I can't take Chad on Tuesday to his doctor's appointment, but I can take that Maureen on Thursday. I'm free on Thursday. Mm-hmm. So they sign up for the things that are convenient for them. In terms of whether they would do something like caregiver relief or be a supportive visitor. If they express an interest in doing that sort of volunteer work, then I will match them with a recipient who's requesting that. And we usually set up an initial visit, like a 15-minute visit, just to get to meet each other, see if they like each other, but see if this is something they feel like it's going to work. And then I let those volunteers then schedule that along with the recipient at their convenience. So again, it's at the volunteer's convenience, what works for them, and they match up that way. So they can volunteer as little as, once a month. They could take one ride a month. They could take one a day if they really wanted to. I average one transportation request a day in Greensburg. So if I had 20 volunteers who volunteered once a month, that's all they'd have to do.
Right.
Now, the reality is I have much more than that. And so my volunteers are volunteering in many capacities, many times. But it can be at their leisure. I have snowbirds. I have volunteers who go away for the winter, and then when they come back, they volunteer again.
Well, do they need their luggage to be carried down to the Florida? I would make sure that I would volunteer for that. But I appreciate you being on the show. Open Your Heart to a Senior, Maureen Zang, the program director. Maureen, if a volunteer, if a listener wanted to be a volunteer, did they go on to your website?
They can go through the website and volunteer. They can call the office directly, or they can actually call 211, which is a clearinghouse for all kinds of social services in the area. And recipients can also, by calling 211, you can request to be a recipient, and they'll direct you to the correct program director based on your like where your location is. And volunteers can also volunteer that way. And again, they'll put you in touch with the correct program director. But ideally, I like to have them call me directly, and we can talk. And if anyone's out there is interested in volunteering, give me a call. Like, the phone call is not a commitment. We can talk a little bit about your needs, your availability, a little bit more about what the program involves and entails, and go from there and really kind of explore whether this is where your passion is. And again, we're very flexible, so folks get in and find that it's not really suiting their interests, and it's not something that really is what they expected it to be. We fully understand that.
So you can call 211. That's just on it's like 911,
exactly.
But not 911, 211. Or you can call Maureen Zang, Program Director for Open Your Heart to a Senior, directly at 724-205-6282. Or you can go on the website, UnitedWay4U.org. That's UnitedWay, number 4, letter U.org. Maureen, thank you very much for your service to our community, for Open Your Heart to a Senior. We appreciate you being on the show.
Well, you're welcome, Chad. I really was an honor and a pleasure to be here today.
You've been listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Join us next week, same time, same place, for another edition of Westmoreland Community Connections. Thanks for listening, everyone.
This has been Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings in and around Westmoreland County. Join us again next week on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB.
Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of St. Anne Home.